Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll take a deep dive into the recently concluded presidential election in Taiwan. Now, the island went to the polls on the 11th of January to elect a president. The results show that people overwhelmingly voted for Tsai Ing-wen and gave her a second consecutive term in office. What does Tsai Ing-wen's victory mean for Taiwan? How does China look at her re-election? How will it impact relations between Taiwan and China? And what's in it for India? We'll help you make sense of it all. Right, but let's first take a look at the next report. It captures the moments after Tsai Ing-wen won the election. The report also talks about how China and the US responded differently to her win. Take a look. On 11th January, Taiwan re-elected President Tsai Ing-wen by a landslide. Some describe it as a rebuke to China, which has tried both military threats and economic inducements to get the island to accept the Chinese rule. China and the months of anti-government unrest in Chinese-ruled Hong Kong took center stage in Tsai Ing-wen's re-election campaign. She firmly rejected Beijing's offer of the one country, two systems model, which has never been popular in Taiwan. She reiterated her opposition to it in a victory speech.
Taiwan people decline a one-country, two-system model. We respect democracy and our sovereign rights. As the President of Taiwan, I must deal with the cross-strait relations according to the will of the people. Just now, as I started the speech, I spent a lot of time explaining how we had dealt with cross-strait relations and will deal with it in the future. I hope this election result sends China a clear message that they clearly will understand what Taiwan people want and insist. And I hope they can understand the stable development of our relations come from the mutual efforts of both sides, not a responsibility of one side. On this foundation, we are willing to start a positive interaction with China.
On the other hand, China says that Taiwan is its territory to be taken by force if needed. Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterated the threat a year ago, though he said at the time that he preferred a peaceful solution. A spokesperson for the Chinese Communist Party's Taiwan Affairs says that Beijing is for peaceful reunification and one country, two systems. The spokesperson says that Beijing will uphold the One China principle and oppose Taiwan's independence. The United States was quick to welcome the election result. US Foreign Minister Mike Pompeo tweeted, and I quote, "The US congratulates Dr. Tsai Ing-wen on her re-election in Taiwan's presidential election. Taiwan once again demonstrates the strength of its robust democratic system. Thank you, President Tsai, for your leadership in developing a strong US partnership." Tsai beat her main opponent, Han Kuo-yu of the Kuomintang Party. The Kuomintang Party favors close ties with China. Tsai beat Han by more than 2.6 million votes. In all, she won almost 8.2 million votes, more than any Taiwan president before, since the island held its first direct presidential election in 1996. All right, joining me are two very special guests, Taiwan's representative in India, Chung Kwang-tian, and with me in the studio is Ambassador Skand R. Thayil. Representative Chung Kwang-tian, what does the election verdict mean for the people of Taiwan?
Thank you, Ramesh, to have me to talk about this very eminent issue. Actually, this time the election has shown the maturity of the people of Taiwan. They have shown the strong will of democracy and the freedom. We have chosen the way of life of our people. We have given the mandate to the president for the next 4 years. I think that, again, to show to the world, Taiwan people, their democracy and the freedom and the maturity of their way of life.
Representative, the US Foreign Minister Mike Pompeo has already tweeted his congratulations to President Tsai. How would you describe Taiwan-US relations?
On behalf of my government, I would like to take this opportunity again to thank the United States, Japan, and other like-minded countries to send their congratulatory message to our election. The relations between Taiwan and the United States has always been very, very cordial, very, very strong in many, many areas. We have fought the 2 world wars. So we have a strong mind of democracy, of freedom, and a free market. So we share the same value with the United States and Japan and other like-minded countries. And we appreciate it for the cooperations between Taiwan and other like-minded countries for the past years.
Now, President Tsai opposes what Beijing calls one country, two systems model. Will that remain her policy in the future too?
This election, again, to show that one country, two systems, it never be accepted by the people of Taiwan. And in the elections, I think the President Tsai expressed her will for the next 4 years how to deal with cross-strait relations. She mentioned very important, one is peace, one is parity, the other one is democracy, and the other is dialogue. Based on these 4 principles, we're going to deal with China.
Right. Ambassador Thayil, if I can come to you now. Have you heard the Taiwanese envoy talk about the priorities for President Tsai's second term in office? How would you describe India-Taiwan relations?
India recognizes People's Republic of China. We have diplomatic relations with People's Republic of China.
Right.
But Taiwan is a separate territory. It has 24 million people. It is 21st largest economy of the world. It has GDP of, in PPP terms, more than $1 trillion. So it is a territory which has its importance. And in 1994, we did open an office in Taipei called the India-Taipei Association, and it practically functions like an embassy, but we do not want to annoy People's Republic of China. So, we are having good relations with Taiwan and also with People's Republic of China.
Okay.
So, relations with Taiwan are very good, very warm. We have had very good officers posted there. And the trade and investment between India and Taiwan is increasing. We want more Taiwanese tourists to come to India. And in this entire context of our Act East policy, Look East policy, I believe that Taiwan has a place. It is a strong economy, it is a strong democracy, and India's relations with Taiwan will continue to grow.
All right. Representative Chung Kwan-Tien, the Hong Kong protests have featured prominently in President Tsai's re-election campaign. So, can there be coordination or synergy among Taiwan, Hong Kong and Macau?
For the past month, the event happened in Hong Kong. The Taiwan government and as well as the people will pay a very close attention to their struggle and their fight for their freedom. And for the future, on the basis the peace, dialogue, democracy, and the parities, we would like to, again, to open the dialogue with China to deal with all these issues.
Also, Representative, does Taiwan fear becoming like a Tibet, in that the Taiwanese fear that they risk losing their identity, culture, and religion under Chinese rule?
No, for the past years, Taiwan people have already grown to the stage that we understand which position we are stand, what kind of a position we are in the world. We are not only a progress, we are progress in democracy, in freedom. Not only that, we make connections with all over the world based on the same value we share, democracy and freedom. So we will still keep on that value and the roadmap to deal with all the like-minded countries in the world, to preserve and to enlarge the value we treasure so much.
All right. Ambassador Thayil, would you say that there is a connection between what happened in Hong Kong and in Taiwan? And in terms of trade, investment, culture, tourism and education, how do you see the India-Taiwan relationship going from here onwards?
If we look at how the people of Taiwan look at China, earlier the people of Taiwan were quite hostile to China, but as China's economy grew, the economic links between Taiwan and China have grown. The trade is about $200 billion US, and about at one point about 4 million tourists from China used to go to Taiwan. So, along with that, in China now in Taiwan the political opinion is divided into two main parties, and President Tsai represents the majority which wants Taiwan to remain independent and retain its Taiwanese identity. Whereas the other side wants that eventually there could be some kind of reunification with China with a one country, two systems kind of a solution. That solution China says they have already implemented in Hong Kong. But what are we saying in Hong Kong for the last 4 months? That system is not working, because China is trying to crush the democratic system of Hong Kong, the legal system of Hong Kong, the policing system of Hong Kong, and it's trying in its own way to make Hong Kong as the system is in China. So the people of Taiwan are watching, they are watching very carefully, and I am sure they will draw their own conclusions that the China's promise that it can be one country, two systems is not believable.
Representative Chung Kwan-Tien, now President Tsai pursues what she calls new southbound policy. What is it about, and what's in it for countries such as India?
The new southbound policy implemented by President Tsai Ing-wen, it is to make connections with 18 countries in the region. Among those 18 countries, I think India is one of the most important countries which we would like to expand our relations. Holistic is in the total relations, not only in trade, in business, investments, in cultural, in education, in regional security, in climate change, anti-terrorism, all those relations we have to strengthen. I think we see some result for the new southbound policies already. For instance, the trade relations with India has jumped. Compared with 2010, we have jumped about 6-fold. Now the total trade was about $7.5 billion US last year. I think that's probably one thing is very important. The trade is very, very balanced. So in other words, our trade is very, very healthy. Aside from that, we also established the 18 Taiwan education centers in various universities, like IIT Madras, IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, and JMI University, Jindo Global University, that kind of university to make connections. We would like to use that our teaching language as a bridge to connect the young generations. Aside from that, we also offer a number of university scholarships. Until now, we have about 2,300 some talented young Indian students studies in various universities in Taiwan. And of course, cultural exchange is ongoing. We have science and technology programs. So it's a holistic approach to India as well as some other southbound countries.
Representative, now India adheres to the Act East policy. It also pursues an Indo-Pacific policy. Now, is there scope for cooperation between India and Taiwan in the Indo-Pacific region?
Taiwan is located in the very strategic location in Indo-Pacific. So we would like to be a part of the Indo-Pacific members, like Honorable Narendra Modi mentioned that in Singapore, Indo-Pacific vision should be inclusive, should be open. It should be enlarged to include all the players in that Indo-Pacific vision. So Taiwan is located in this position. We would like very much to cooperate with India as well as Japan, Australia, United States in this Indo-Pacific vision to contribute.
Also, Representative, what is President Tsai's stand on the so-called 1992 consensus?
1992 consensus, according to our president, there is never a consensus, but there was a historical event happened. So I think both sides should respect that. Having said that, I think we should look ahead, how to increase the connectivities, how do we establish the dialogue on the basis of democracy, peace, and the parity.
All right. But how does Taiwan view, for instance, China's Belt and Road Initiative?
According to a lot of reports from different countries, I think this is a BRI initiative probably will create some so-called the debt trap. This is something I would like to take this opportunity to caution the countries. They have to study further to take that initiative.
Right. Ambassador Thial, there we heard the representative talk about a whole range of issues, including, for instance, the new southbound policy and how Taiwan in particular wants to join the Quad, the India, US, Japan, Australia grouping in the Indo-Pacific. Your thoughts on these two twin issues?
The core objective of India's Indo-Pacific policy and that of our partners is that this entire region is linked and there should be peace and stability in the entire region. And for continued peace and stability, Taiwan is a very critical factor, because as China is becoming more assertive and as President Xi Jinping is saying again and again that there would be unification, it is very important, and that is what India says and other countries say, that whatever happens between People's Republic of China and Taiwan, it should be by peaceful means, it should be by dialogue, and it should be by the consensus in both the countries. Nothing should be done by force. But if we look at China's track record in the past few years, whether it is South China Sea, whether it is at our own border, whether it is with Vietnam and some other issues, they are trying to push the envelope and trying to pressurize other countries to accept their historical claims, which may or may not have any legal validity. So in that context, Taiwan is under some kind of a threat of pressure from China, and if there is that kind of a threat, then perhaps India would be in sympathy with Taiwan, that whatever happens between People's Republic of China and Taiwan should be done peacefully, should be done by dialogue, and there should not be any coercion or use of force.
Right. Ambassador Thial, is there also a scope for a convergence, say, between India's Act East policy and Taiwan's new southbound policy?
Very much so, because as far as Taiwan is concerned, it is part of the global value chains. They are very good in hardware manufacture of IT, and when India is going on Make in India program to have more hardware, electronics, etc. produced in India, Taiwanese companies can be our very major partners, and they can invest in India, they can come to India and tap the Indian market, which is at present being dominated by Chinese and Korean companies. And Taiwanese companies can certainly have a very major presence with the help of Indian entrepreneurs, Indian engineers, and also help us in Make in India. So I think that will be the best expression of Taiwanese positive contribution to India's Act East policy.
Right. Representative Chung Wan-Tian, now you have spoken about Bollywood, for instance, cricket, about improving people-to-people ties. So would that be on your agenda going forward?
There are so much commonalities between our two peoples. I look at Amir Khan not as a director, not as an actor. I look at him as a humanitarian. In his film, he tried to express a lot of ideas of humanitarians. So I think I would invite him to Taiwan to talk about his idea of humanitarianism and to talk with the youngsters, because youngsters are the future of the world. And again, for the cricket is new to Taiwan, but they must have some connections, because for the youngsters, sports, they speak for themselves. And Sachin is such a wonderful legend in cricket. So I would like to invite him to explain to our people, how do you play this cricket? Maybe we can use the cricket to connect with people. True. Again, there are so many cultural connectivities we should work on. And like religions also, most of the people probably Buddhist, and India is the birthplace for Buddhism. So I think we have a lot of work to do to put these two peoples together.
Right. Ambassador Thail, if I can come to you now, your thoughts on the way forward in India-Taiwan ties. Representative talking about Bollywood, about cricket, about people-to-people ties. So your thoughts on the way forward in India-Taiwan ties.
In fact, the trade and commercial ties are already there, and representative spoke about the reach of Indian films. And it is very important that there is more understanding between the people of India and the people of Taiwan about each other's culture, about each other's language, about each other's habits and civilization. And there, of course, films are there. I think yoga can be a very, very important connect between India and Taiwan, and of course the Buddhist connection is there. I have been to many Buddhist pilgrim sites in India where thousands of Taiwanese pilgrims come, and that connection should be strengthened. There are about 35% proclaimed Buddhists in Taiwan, and many more have great reverence for Lord Gautam Buddha. So there is a very good foundation for having very strong emotional connection, cultural connection, civilizational connection between people of India and people of Taiwan, and the two governments and as well as the two people, NGOs should work together to make that happen.
All right, on that note, I want to thank my guests, Representative Chung Wan-Tian and Ambassador Thail. Appreciate it. With that, it's a wrap on this special broadcast, but news continues here. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.